Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we've got the pleasure of watching what I believe will be one of the awesome new Ukrainian players playing on the European server. Our hero today is going to be Smalich, and by the end of the video you are going to see why they are definitely a force to be reckoned with when they are playing in the top tier American heavy tank, the T110E5. Now, this is going to be one of the biggest damage games of all time in this vehicle, but whether it's going to be a win or a lose, it can't be a draw as this is an assault game. You're just going to have to stay seated, and it remains to be seen. So, Smalich playing the T110E5 here. This vehicle, it gets like a real bad name inside World of Tanks, I guess because of the big weak point that it has on top of the vehicle, unlike the Super Conqueror. And considering the Super Conqueror, now that the AMX M454 has been nerfed, is arguably the best tier 10 heavy tank, I think there's just a huge amount of the player base who won't even look at the T110E5 because they just think, why would you play this thing if you can play a Super Conqueror? However, I love the T110E5 because inside a matchup like this, you can play it oh so much more aggressively than a Super Conqueror. Now, this vehicle has so much better side armor than the Super Conqueror because it's like shaped like it bows out. So this means you could over-angle it and it still has a really good chance of being able to ricochet a shell. It does have some issues with getting overmatched along the lower part of the hull, which can be a little bit of a problem. But as I was saying, in this kind of a matchup, the T110E5 it just feels so much better than a Super Conqueror because when you're playing against tier 8 tanks, you want to be able to kind of like expose, and sometimes you have to go absolutely raging aggressive against the enemy team to be able to win a battle like this, especially one that is going to end up being so close. And so to have that better lower plate that doesn't get penned every single time like on a Super Conqueror, and to have the better side armor as well, while you do suffer by having the weak points on top of the vehicle, and you're not as accurate as a Super Conqueror, and you have 8 degrees of gun depression instead of 10, for maps like this, where it's not all about sitting in a hold down position, the T110E5 can actually be the better vehicle. Now, unfortunately, you all know World of Tanks. It can quite often end up with just sitting opposite each other, needing as much gun depression and no weak points possible, and so that's where the T110E5 really drops down and the Super Conqueror outperforms it. But today, Smalich is going to show you exactly why the T110E5 should not be ignored, and for the random queue especially, it's one of, in my opinion, the more fun heavy tanks to play for where you just don't give a monkeys and you want to throw down against your opponents. Lots of people underestimate the rate of fire on the T110E5. It's always been high, but Wargaming buffed it up significantly a couple of years ago. Now, if you're using like gun rammer, vents, and a premium consumable like Smalich here, you're starting to get up to scary levels of damage per minute. And when you get a nice big XP pinata like the mouse in front of you, the 300 and I believe 40 millimeters of heat pen that these high explosive anti-tank rounds have will be so efficient for removing large amounts of German hit points from the battle in quick succession, as Smalich has farmed up nearly 6,000 damage in the first 3.5 minutes of this battle, feasting upon the German heavy tanks. Now using the regular rounds to go against the tier 8s. And it's quite if you're going to go full gold in World of Tanks, it's good to take a few armor-piercing rounds, as you see Smalich using here, if not just to overmatch some plates or to be able to go through tracks with a little bit more efficiency, or also, if you put in like 6 or 7 regular rounds, if you are the power player who wants to just spam full gold, you're going to massively reduce the credit wastage that you have in a battle. Smalich really isn't giving me much room to breathe here, as we can see an intuition switch to a high explosive anti-tank round, and they got 7,400 damage in the first 4 minutes and 15 seconds. But even though they've done 7,000 damage, and if we take a look at the bar at the top of the screen, it's pretty much, you see this amount of hit points, that is what Smalich has done so far to the enemy team. His team is still down by 5 tanks and down by nearly 2,000 hit points. You literally couldn't carry harder in World of Tanks. And this is where a vehicle like the Renault Toronte, or even now the nerf damage per minute on the AMX M454, might fall off, and where you need raw damage per minute to go against your opponents. And is this going to be the perfect example of over-angling the T110E5's armor? No, it's not. The Scorpion actually manages to go through the side there, but the Scorpion spent so long trying to find a point they could pen the T110E5 that Smalich was able to put in 3 rounds and take out the entirety of their tank, following it up with a kill on the VK, securing their 4th kill of the game, and now over 10,000 damage in the first 5 minutes of this battle. This is one of the most insane games of World of Tanks that I have ever seen. And now catching the Japanese medium tank out in the open, going back to those armor-piercing rounds which can overmatch the side of the STB-1's 35mm of armor, Smalich is literally a one-man army right now, keeping their team in this game. You can't carry harder in World of Tanks, ladies and gents, yet there's still full health tier 10 medium tanks to deal with. Smalich intuition switches, gets a 500 damage clap into the WTR Panzer IV, finishes up with another HE round, now with 8 heat rounds left in their vehicle and 1 AP round. They're in a 2 versus 4 scenario. Smalich is just going to keep going. No room to breathe in this situation, as the longer you give your opponents to mass up, the quicker they're going to be able to outmaneuver you and outshoot you. But luckily Smalich stays on focus, gets the 1390. Their Progetto 65 is coming in to help them against the UDES, and Smalich is now brawling, bruising, using that superior hull armor that the T110E5 has, but unfortunately still getting penned by the UDES, now down to a one-shot and 12,000 damage. We're against 3 tanks, including 1 autoloader to the side and a sneaky French light tank. Smalich low rolls on the UDES, leaving them on just enough 14 hit points to finish them off, and now they've only got 2 rounds left to deal with 2 tanks on the enemy team. Oh my gosh, the char bounces. Now Smalich has a nice hit point buffer to start a 1 versus 1 with 9 kills, chasing the Pool's medal here. Can they secure it? AP switch, blind fire kill. Are you actually kidding me? The sheer confidence of Smalich there to fire that armor-piercing round against the EBR, who wasn't even spotted. That was pure instincts. That was pure reactions. That was pure gameplay inside World of Tanks, with Smalich securing over 13,000 damage and 10 kills. This was a game that just got my blood pumping. And with only 1 round left in their vehicle, destroying 2/3 of the enemy team, Smalich remains the last tank standing and the absolute king of this battle in what has to be one of, if not the greatest games I've seen, purely for many perspectives. Just that pure aggression, that just constant grind, that constant adapting to the scenario, the constant focus of what needs to get done. And also, this is just one of the greatest games in one of the most fun tanks to play, the T110E5. Smalich, congratulations to you for this monster gameplay. So unsurprisingly, this is an ace tanker for a casual 1,891 base experience in this sub 7-minute round. The Pool's medal for those 10 kills, the Steel Wall medal for blocking enough damage to destroy this vehicle a couple of times over, the high caliber for one of the highest damage games I've ever seen, and one of the highest damage games of all time in a T110E5 at 13,500. And with those AP rounds, Smalich actually ends up making a slight profit in this game, which is remarkable, considering they had to fire every single round, bar 1, inside their tank. So Smalich, thank you so much for uploading your incredible game on the What Replays website. It was an absolute thrill ride for me to watch this one, and an even greater pleasure to commentate on it. And thank you very much for giving me a challenge, because this one was so fast packed, I think I barely got a breath in. And yeah, if you end up meeting Smalich on the battlefield, you better watch your breathing, because I think the amount of pressure they're going to exert on you might be a little bit too much. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that was it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're watching this video as it goes live on Sunday, it's time for the Tech Tree Showcase. And this week, Twitter decided that they want me to play the T57 Heavy. So come along as I play all of the American heavy tanks, leading up to the equally unapologetic American auto-loading heavy, the T57 Heavy. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.